One of the most important skills camp leaders need to learn is how to ask for help. After all, we are one big community with many moving parts, and every now and then, despite all our intentional staff training, we're going to run into situations that require assistance, advice from others, or other staff members to step in. We all know this, but somehow many of our staff members struggle to ask for help. Join us and our special guest, Kelly Schuna, as we talk about why and what we can do to make this an accepted and expected part of camp. Running camp should be about people, not paperwork. UltraCamp helps you manage staff, registration, and communication in one place, so you spend less time on tasks and more on camp. Find out more at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Welcome to Camp Code, everyone, a podcast brought to you by Go Camp Pro. Gab and I have been podcasting for 11 seasons. We're in season 12. But we knew we had to continue because just like people grow and change, so does our industry. So here we are, ready to discuss new challenges, new ways of handling situations, new advice from those doing the work, and new ideas to help us all do our jobs better. Our commitment to intentional leadership training just grows stronger every year. And we are super excited for this episode because we get to chat with one of our favorite Go Camp Pro podcasters, Kelly Schuna. And as always, before we get the discussion going, we'll begin with introductions. So, Gabrielle, could you start us off, please?
Yes. Hey, everybody. My name is Gabs. I go by she, her, and elle. That's for the Frenchies out there. I'm one of the camp directors at Camp Waro, and Camp Waro is an all-girls camp. And we focus on creating a positive environment for girls and gender minorities.
Great. Thank you. Kelly, how about you?
Hello, everybody. My name is Kelly Schuna. I use pronouns she and her. I co-own and executive direct a summer day camp in Stillwater, Minnesota for all ages, all kids, all people. And I'm super happy to be here.
Yay.
Thanks, Kelly. And I am Beth Allison. I'm co-owner of Camp Hacker and Go Camp Pro. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a camp consultant and trainer. And I am very excited to jump into this episode because we have Kelly Schuna. So welcome, Kelly. We're super excited to hear you, to see your face, and to get to learn from you. Kelly, as many of you know, is the co-host of the Camp Owners podcast with Howie Grossinger. So we are having a crossover episode today. So let's dive in. All right. So I hear so many directors telling me that their staff just doesn't know how to ask for help these days. I hear it at every conference I go to. So before we get to the what we can do about it part of this episode, I would love to hear the thoughts of Kelly and Gab, and I'll share some myself. But why? Why is this such an issue in the 2020s? And then what is the training implication for that? So what do we need to train in order to combat the why? So Kelly, can we start with you? What are some of your thoughts on why this has become such a topic at conferences? And what does that mean we need to teach? Because we'll get into the how a little bit later in the episode.
Awesome. Yes. Well, I think it's ironic that you asked me to talk about this because I think this is a growth area that I still have for myself. But my reasons are probably different than the current generation. As an Xer, for me, I think it's a whole different thing. Mine is about, at least initially in my camp career, was wanting to feel like I knew what to do all the time and that I had all the answers as the director. But, and that might be the thing for current staff. But I think a big part of it is, I have a couple of thoughts. Can I do two at a time?
Yes, please.
Yes. We only want to hear from you, Kelly. We're just so excited. So yeah, lay it on us.
Yes. No, I want to make sure though, I'm respecting the culture of this podcast. Being a guest.
Sharing good ideas. So there you go.
Right.
Beth, don't you want to be a counselor at Kelly's camp?
I absolutely do. I absolutely do.
Well, applications just open, Beth. I just to say no. Applications open. I'd love to have you. I love to have you. I think two things I'm seeing. One is I think we are less and less asking for help sometimes because we have this multi-tool with us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think our staff is so used to when they need to ask for help, they just type it into their phones. And so even just that muscle memory of asking other people how to do something or I need help is, I just think it's an out of practice skill. And so I think is one of the big things. And then the other piece is wanting to, again, relates to my Gen Xer part, but just wanting to do it so well, not wanting to, it's fail. They don't want to fail, but I think it's very vulnerable to ask for help. It is a kind of a scary thing because it's admitting that you either don't know what to do or you've tried all the things and it's not working. So you're either like feel you're failing because what you tried isn't working, or you don't even know where to start, which is just such a vulnerable place. So those are my two things that I think is going on or what I'm seeing with my staff.
And I would also add to that when you Google an answer, there's no fear of somebody laughing at you or what, you didn't know that? Like Google doesn't sort of respond that way, at least not yet anyway. So whereas they might be afraid in person that somebody might think, they're not very bright or they weren't listening in training or, there's that fear. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter, but Google doesn't judge. So there is that piece to it too, but that's a great start. All right. Thank you. Gab, what about you? Any other ideas why you think this happens?
I'm with you on the trust thing. I think trust is low. And I think that as camp directors, that's one of our biggest tasks. And it certainly is for me. I really have to prove myself that I'm trustworthy in the sense that I won't shame. I am there to help. I am there to listen, really work hard with my leadership team to practice that. And sometimes you need to go through a little rough patches to earn trust, so you come out the other end and the staff member sees you were there for them. So sometimes you need time. Time helps with trust if you make the right steps. I also think I'm with Kelly on the generational. I think every generation has had a hard time with the asking help, maybe for different reasons. But, a little bit before my time at Waro, you would find out when you were getting on the bus with the campers when you were leaving on camp if you were coming back the next year or not. So the camp director would stand there and shake every staff member's hand, and you knew you were coming back by her saying, I hope to see you next summer, or they'll say, thank you for the summer. So if you got a thank you for the summer, you are not accepted back. And I was an old school, very understood. This made sense. So, imagine the lack of trust there. So of course you're not asking for help. But I do think there's big shame. I think that people want to prove themselves. And I do think that there's a small caveat of people that like sometimes being a little bit in distress. So I think sometimes the drama is more exciting than the solution. And sometimes with our pals, it's really fun to just be like, oh, I can't believe this happened. And they don't really want to problem solve. They like the drama a little bit more. And again, that's building trust and helping them see the big picture. So I think sometimes there's a little bit of that as well. A little bit.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's tiny.
Well, again, they don't have their cell phones with them, TikTok for all the entertainment.
Listen, sometimes
so
it's exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do think that understanding the why behind this behavior is exactly how you design training that lands. And I think we need to have it framed through developmental psychology and generational context and camp culture, as you have both said. And I think there's another piece to the failure piece, is that they equate asking for help with failure. I think a lot of staff have grown up in these achievement-focused environments. Like today, it's all about the grades and the sports and the university applications and your social media performance. How many followers do you have? All that stuff. So they've internalized that capable equals independent. So asking for help can feel, I think, like admitting incompetence. And as Kelly said, like they're at camp and they want to impress directors and co-counselors. So they have this fear of looking like they can't handle it, and it becomes amplified. So definitely we need to normalize asking for help as a strength and a leadership skill. I also think they've been raised in a very support-rich but autonomy-poor culture. So let me explain that. So many people have grown up with helicopter, or now the new term is concierge parenting. Where
la la.
so it's a fancy one. So adults are quickly solving the problems for them. So it means they're used to help being given, but not requested. And when they face difficulty at camp, they may freeze because they have never actually had to ask for help before. It's just always there. So we need to teach the language and process of asking for help, which we'll get into in a minute. And then, of course, I think they just fear that judgment and social risk. Peer relationships are the be all and end all to this age group. And they worry that asking for help might make them seem either like dramatic, not when they're wanting to be though, or not tough enough or too emotional. And that would especially be true in front of peers or like leadership team members that they've really admired for years. Like they want to come across as, I'm good too. So I think that means leaders need to model vulnerability first. And then my last one is that they lack practice reading their own stress signals. So this, I think, is just a lot to do with age and maturity, but they've grown up constantly on, like they're online, they're multitasking, they're overstimulated, and they may not notice that they're struggling until they've already hit the overwhelm button. So without that self-awareness, they don't know how to recognize when they're supposed to ask for help. So I think including self-awareness checkpoints and daily routines, what's your stress level right now, all that kind of stuff. And for me, I think my reason, so this is, I don't know if it still applies, but it probably does. I used to think that the leaders were too busy and I didn't want to be a burden.
Yeah,
So
100%.
I just didn't want to add to somebody else's load, and that was on me. That was not on my directors. But I think that some of that is still there. So as directors, we need to invite help seeking, like use that kind of language that reinforces that supporting them is part of my job. It's not an inconvenience. Please come and ask me. Any other points you'd like to get out before we get to the how?
Yeah, it's just snapping. I don't even know if you can hear snapping on a pen.
Okay.
I'm snapping. I'm snapping people for both of them. Yes, it's just so much of that. Like the trust. I think about that, Gabs, with like even me with my leadership team. Like again,
Sure.
it is a growth area for me to ask for help. And what I have learned more and more is that me asking for help tells my team I trust them.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
even what I'm working on is to like, at our leadership retreat, I was like, listen, I'm growing in this way and I want to get there, but sometimes I just need to get working on saying, I feel so overwhelmed. I don't even know what I need right now. Like that's for me where I'm at. Like I'm still in the stages of learning to identify. So I think that can even be something like you said, Beth, you just feel the overwhelm. So I'm working on just saying, I'm just overwhelmed. I don't even know what I need right now, but I know I need something. And so really trusting and leaning into my leadership team to just be vulnerable to say that. And then I also helped or ask them that if they'll then propose things to me, because sometimes that helps me if they're like, okay, you're super overwhelmed. Can I go do this? Or what if I take this off your plate? Or what if I just clean the office bathroom? Because I know that's gross right now. Would that help? And I will say, yes, cleaning is my love language. That's something that
I wish
like,
cleaning was my love language, honestly.
no, not that I do it when other people do it. That's
my God.
yes.
It's your love gifting language.
Yeah. Yeah. But I really relate to that trust piece because that's even of like the trust. People trust you even more when you ask them for help. But being able to identify even what you need sometimes is a lot. And so it's just like, here's where I'm at, and then proposing some of that. So I really resonate with that trust piece, I think, for everybody in camping, but I like that trust piece.
And I think we need to just remember that they're still young adults for the most part. Most of us hire just young adults, and they're still developing confidence and their adult identities, right? So I think we have to keep reminding ourselves of that. All right. So when we return from our ad break, we're going to get into ways we can help our staff feel comfortable asking for help. So we'll hear from our sponsors. For Camp Code listeners, unlock Ultra Camp's operations checklist for new directors, a free download to help you prepare for a smooth season. Find it at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Running camp comes with countless moving parts. UltraCamp helps you stay on top of them. Organize activities and daily schedules, manage wait lists and cabin assignments, automate billing and payments, centralize all camper and staff info in one place. With UltraCamp, camp operations run smoother, so directors can lead with confidence. Book your free customized demo at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. And we are back. Asking for help is such an important piece of staff culture building. We want something that normalizes asking for help, that shows that it's not a weakness, but it's actually wisdom, that's simple to recall under pressure. And of course, for us, it has to fit that nice camp vibe, friendly, positive, team-centered, all of that. So I'm willing to bet we all have a few ideas. So we'll do 2 rounds, let's say, of sharing what's worked for us or new things we want to try this coming summer. So Kelly, round 1 for you. What are you going to do or what have you done that's worked really well?
One of the first things that I have been trying to continually do, and I say it first because I think it starts now for your next season staff, but especially also at orientation training, is role modeling asking for help. So if you have a group me or you use Slack, like getting people engaged early with help on things, whether it's ideas for themes or it could be anything really, but especially at orientation, trying to do a nice job of, hey, Beth, can you grab this extension cord for me? Or Gabs, I want to do this fun like song at the beginning. Can you help me? So trying to role model that versus be the typical, at least for me, of Sherpa of like, I have 8 things in my hands and people are like, do you have them? I'm like, I got it. I'm great. So trying to really role model, and that's so easy, but that's the first one that I think of is having the high up people role model what asking for help looks and sounds like.
And I would say that it's actually, easy maybe to say, but not execute. And I think with my years of being in this business, one of the things I've noticed in a lot of our camp professionals and executive directors or managers of camp is that they're in that role typically because they're capable of doing so much. So they're great, in front of campers and staff management and training, but also behind the scenes, organizing and planning. And there's many skill sets that you learn at camp and then you develop and then you're capable of doing. I think my honest to goodness gift in this is that I do have pretty present learning differences, being dyslexic and have ADHD. So I'm forced to ask people and it's really vulnerable, but I do need help with reading emails. I do need help with writing emails. I've had 17-year-olds where I'm like, hey, look at my phone. Can you read this out loud to me? Great. Can you respond this way? And they're like, sure. I'm like, great. Thank you. But I'm forced to do it. And now that I'm older, before it was hard and it took a lot of energy out of me and I had to battle my own demons because of it. But now that I look at the team that I have, they're so capable, but they're capable because I don't do anything alone. So I think for those camp directors, a lot of camp directors are quite independent and because you're quite capable. So I think that role modeling piece, I love that image. Kelly, I can see you carrying a whole bunch of items and being like, I'm good, because you're thinking you're helping them by them not helping you. But I try not to do anything by myself, truthfully, even things that I'm good at. I try to bring people in and so that they're learning from me, but also at the same time, they see that I struggle and it's part of the culture, truthfully. But it's not easy for camp directors, I would say.
No, it was the hardest lesson I had to learn after
Yeah.
my first couple of years directing.
You're very
Because in
capable,
my
Beth.
head, thanks, Gav.
Yes.
But in my head, even when I wasn't capable about things, I didn't want to show my staff I was struggling. I felt like I had to be the one that with all the answers, and they had to feel that energy from me. So I didn't share. So it took me a couple of years to go, oh my gosh, that's not the part of my job I should be focused on. I should be focused on allowing them opportunities for leadership roles as well, instead of me doing everything. And B, I'm lying, basically.
Mhm.
And so again, showing that vulnerability. Yeah. Was
Yeah, we
that
all
your
think
hope
we're
piece,
good
Gab?
at. I was gonna say we all think we're good at faking it, right? Like we
Yeah.
all think
Yes.
we're so good at faking that we've got it together, but
We
really
do it
bad
all
at
the
it.
time. We do it. And as women as well, I think there's a piece of that too.
I think so. And I think there's a difference though. And I've had this conversation with other camp professionals and women who are camp professionals, and they say, well, I don't want to put that weight on my staff. I don't want them to know that I'm stressed. I don't want them.
Yep.
And I think there's an added role modeling opportunity to say,
Hmm.
well, this is a stressful situation, but I do know we can handle it. We have to put our thinking caps on and let's figure it out together. I can handle the stress, but I do want to problem solve. So I think like yeah, that freaked me out. But okay, like, what do? We have our feelings and now we move forward. And I think that's a role modeling that we can do as well. And I understand wanting to protect our staff members from parents or from financial issues.
Hmm.
We don't have to delve in too
No.
deep, but we can bring them in a responsible way and saying, I've
Yep.
got this with you and we can do this together. So I think there is ways of doing it, but it takes practice, takes years of practice and therapy. It
Absolutely.
helps me in therapy,
Therapy.
helps me.
Very good. All right. So I am well aware that this is just an expectation now. So I have created not one, not two, but three acronyms to teach staff how to ask for help. So
Stop it.
this is just this is just a framework, right?
Okay.
Because we do camp together. So these are just silly little acronyms to sort of, I mean, make your own, but just so that they're like, okay, here's my asking for help acronym. So my first one is camp. Shocker. It helps to remind counselors that asking for help is part of camp life, that it's part of collaboration and accountability and mutual support and problem solving. So my C is for check in. So that is also with yourself. Like pause and notice. Am I struggling? Am I unsure? Or am I just overwhelmed? And if something feels off, don't ignore it, name it. So check in with yourself. A is ask early. So don't wait until it's too big. So for, you want to ask your co-counselor, your supervisor, your head counselor, your leadership team member as soon as you feel uncertain. Like, I'm not sure what to do here. Can I get your thoughts? And M for me would be make it clear. So say what kind of help you need. Like, can you watch my cabin while I take a breath? Or can you help me figure out how to handle this camper situation? So you're making it clear what kind of help it is that you need. So instead of walking into the director's office and go, I'm done. Like I just can't handle it anymore. You need to be clear about what that problem is. And the final thing is P is partner up. So you're not alone. Your team wants to help. So follow up, learn together, and then thank your teammates for stepping in because that's how community grows. So then I went a little further and did the campfire approach. And so, like for me, that would be, catch it. C would be catch it early. Don't wait until burnout. A, ask out loud. So you're using your voice. M, match the moment. So choose the right person or the right method, whether you're going to do it over the radio, the walkie talkies, you're going to do it in person, you're going to do it by email, whatever it is. And P is pause and reflect. So what did you learn from asking? And then the fire part is really, these are pretty cheesy, but when you ask for help, you get insight and you restore energy. So the fire, FI stands for find insight, and the RE for restore energy. So we need to make it like part of training, highlighting each day who gave help or who asked for help and how it made us better. And my last one was just a little bit shorter, but again, make up your own for whatever works for your camp, is to send out an SOS. So S would be stop and spot it. So notice when you're hitting a limit, whether it's emotionally, physically, mentally, it's okay. And awareness is strength. O for open up. So name it to somebody you trust. Like I'm feeling a bit out of my depth. Can you walk me through this? And the final S would be obviously seek support. So reach for the right kind of help, somebody who can actually be part of that solution. Because all of those people, let's say above you in the camp family, in terms of leadership, they want to be a part of your safety net. And so we want to be able to ask those kinds of questions. So I think for me, it's all about making help visible, help seeking visible and praised. So like saying things like, thanks for asking early. That was great leadership. Or, you teach the skill explicitly through role play and phrases or, who to ask or when to ask, or use that consistent language and framework like CAMP or SOS models. You folks have already talked about normalizing vulnerability through leadership, through leader modeling and like storytelling. but reinforce it all summer. So in debriefs and supervisor check-ins, staff meetings, I'd be saying these kinds of phrases all through training and all through the summer, like asking for help is leadership, not weakness. Strong counselors ask sooner, or camp means we do it together, or no one solos at camp, like those kinds of things. Kelly, what else have you got?
We're so respectful and quiet. A couple things I thought of when you were talking, Beth, was with the check-ins is we've been trying to be really intentional about doing a weekly check-in with staff and very specific questions. And they're like short. So it's like, how are you? What's going well? What's not going well? And anything else you want us to know. And I think instead of saying, we want you to ask us for help, sometimes just asking what's not going well leads to what they need help with. So that's been a way for us, instead of like, wait, right now, just to say what's hard, what's challenging, and getting into that problem solving mode if they're not coming to us initially.
Giving them the space to do that. Yep.
Yeah. So creating space for that they know that there'll be a check-in that week, but that's more us coming to them, but really very clearly asking. By us asking, I think opens that door a lot of times to ask for that help.
And I would say with that, and I love that, and I would say that with those check-ins, I'm not quite sure if you have this piece, but one piece that we've added in, it's been a handful of years now, and it really has made a difference, is asking them, when did they notice that this wasn't their favorite part of the day, or when did they notice that this kid was maybe, they might need a little extra support. When did those feelings or thoughts come up? And then, a lot of the ones that I deal with is usually about 2 weeks. There's almost like a 2-week breaking point where they either end up in tears, or they, you can see some passive aggressive behaviors, or it's usually about a 2-week mark. And then we ask, well, what stopped you from coming forward? And typically it's similar to what Beth has said. It boils down to, I didn't want to bother you. I thought I should be able to handle it. Da, 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 da. So it's similar, so we can reinforce that we're so happy you did share, and then say, how can we reduce that? So we can say, that was 14 days of you being uncomfortable with this situation on your own. How can we reduce it to 2 days? Is that, how do we, and sometimes it's like 2 days, Gab, I can't do, I don't even know I have to pee for 2 days. I need more time. I'm like, okay, 4 days. What do you need to do? What do we need to do? How can I tell you're not doing well? So we can, it comes down to self-awareness. And that's, again, what Beth was talking about at the beginning. They are young, they are developing, they are learning about themselves in their own adulthood in their own way. And having those follow-up questions, and teaching your leadership team members that after your problem solving, to come back to them and say, thank you so much. This feels great. How do you feel? Usually there's a lot of pressure that's off their, stress has been relieved, but then going back and saying, let's see how we can tighten this up so you don't have to feel this way for so long. Even if it's 5 hours, I don't want you to wait that long. So maybe adding those little pieces. I have a couple more. Beth, can I add them in here?
Ahead.
All right.
Yeah, please.
At the very beginning, so for myself, our staff members that just finished the CIT program and first year staff members typically are the ones that don't ask for help the most, because they want to prove that they're doing a good job. It's very specific to the reason. So in their interviews to camp, we're really, really transparent and clear, and say the number one mistake that first year staff members do at Waro is that they don't ask for help. So we want to be explicitly clear that part of your role is for you to be aware where there's some struggles, so that that your job is to come forward. And when there's CIT, we say your CIT coordinators supported you in doing that. Do you remember a moment where they did, blah, blah, blah. Now this is your responsibility, because you're in charge of little people, and those tiny people need somebody to speak up for them, including you. If you're having a hard time, you have to be at your best. So we expect you. So I say you should be asking at least 1 to 5 questions a day at the very beginning, and we'll be checking in if you're not. Now, if you're not, that's okay, because camp is overwhelming, blah, blah, blah. We do a whole spiel on it. And then we ask, similar to what you're saying, Kelly, where do you think you might struggle in this? What might block you? But where do you think you might have some ease in this? Like, what scenario do you think you might have some ease? Most of them say if there's a camper that's unhappy or in danger. most of them also say when it's their own happiness. So that they have a hard time with. But we get to hear that information. So we go, okay, well, your happiness is extremely important. There's some things that we do have control over and some things we don't. But even if the rain is bumming you out and we don't have access to that dial of weather that adjusts the weather, it's still very important that you tell us, because there might be some things that we can do that's going to just make things a little bit better for you. And that's really important to us. So being very transparent at the beginning that this is our expectations is to ask. And then I would also have the piece of when they do come to camp, having them practice asking questions, and that we do in staff training. So in staff training, after near the end of a session, we have them write down as many questions as possible. They pair up with each other. They try to answer each other's questions. If they can't do that for each other, then we bring it to the larger group and we really celebrate these questions and we really celebrate that teamwork. So just even during staff training, we make asking questions be part of the training process. And then we encourage it in the first 3 days of camp when campers are there by giving out cue cards and just having people say, hey, I'm confused about this. I'm worried about this. I'm excited about that. And then we do the exact same thing that we talked about. When did you notice you were worried about this? When did this happen? That kind of thing.
Well, that leads right into me saying you need to have an entire session
You
at
do.
leadership training called Asking for Help is Leadership, or something along those lines, because you want to normalize and practice asking for help as a leadership skill. So if you were doing that, you could start your session again by getting them to start thinking about it and getting input. So saying something like, camp is full of moments when we'll need a hand with campers or with emotions or with decisions. But many of us have been raised to think asking for help means that we're failing. At camp, it means we're leading. So you could do like a quick activity of like show of hands or do a poll on your phones, whatever you want to do. But raise your hand if you've ever tried to handle something alone at camp that you probably should have asked for help with. And maybe you have a couple of more senior staff members. They could tell a couple of stories, like really short stories, to kind of lift the mood a little bit, but also show that they should have asked for help. And then discuss with them what made it hard to ask for help. So if they've never been to camp before, you could say in any situation at school or, on your sports team or whatever, what made it hard to ask for help, and let some voices share. And you want to capture these keywords and put them, on a sign or on whiteboards or whatever. But things like we've already talked about, I didn't want to bother anyone. I felt embarrassed. I thought it was my job to handle it. So we want to say to them that, like, these are the exact reasons why so many young leaders, not just camp counselors, hesitate. But at camp, we are building a team that thrives on connection, not competition. So we're relearning that asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And it protects our campers and it supports our fellow staff, and it builds community. And then you introduce whatever framework you're going to use. So, the camp one, for example. So the check-in, ask early, make it clear, partner up. So for C, you can say, you notice you're drained halfway through the day. A, you ask your co for 10 minutes to regroup. M, you say, could you take the group for a bit while I just take a breather? And P, you check in later and you say, thank you so much for taking my kids for just 10 minutes. And then I think, of course, because this is so important at camp and for learning and for the muscle memory building, is we do some role play. So, give each group a quick scenario card, and each one of them practices asking for help using the framework. So the camp steps or whatever acronym you come up with. And then you get one person to play the counselor who needs some help, one who plays the helper. So they're either a co or a supervisor or director or whatever. And then you have one observer who observes and gives feedback. Did they use the steps in your acronym? And then after a couple of minutes, switch roles. So the debriefing has got to be the important part. Like, what part of asking felt the hardest? What made it easier when you said it out loud? How did it feel to be asked for help? Like those kinds of things. Because I think when we practice asking, and this was part of a session that Kelly taught at Wix the last Women in Camp Summit, like practicing saying these things out loud. And hers was about having hard conversations, but it feels less awkward in real life if you've practiced. If you've said, hey, I need some help, or you come up with whatever phrase works for you. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to build comfort asking for help. And then I think you end with some sort of group reflection, like, what's one time this summer you think you might need to ask for help? Or you could have counselors share a few responses out loud or write them on a post-it board labeled help happens here or whatever. Like, you just want to really focus on the fact that this is what we're looking for. We want you to ask for help. And then, just reminding them that camp means we do it together. And then you can use things in your daily, check-ins or things like that. Like, what's your C today? What do you need to check in about today? Or, leadership staff can model it by saying, I needed to ask early today about scheduling, and I did. Or maybe during training, like, recognize the good askers publicly. Like, you've got your staff all gathered before the end of the day and you say, okay, who asked for help today? They could put up their hands, and who did you ask for help and how did it turn out? So you're making it a celebrated part of the culture. And that's where I would go with doing some of that. Any other thoughts before we head to Gab's famous recap?
I liked when even in the debrief, Beth, I wonder if you could have them say, what's one thing that you think would make it easier for you to ask for help, or something
I
that
love
makes
that.
it easier for you to ask for help from others. And maybe they're with their team or their co-counselors and they start to get some of those, like, it's really great if someone just asks me, or it's really great if someone just, steps in and see if I want to do some, or I want something done.
I love it.
Gabrielle, it's time.
Recap. I'm like literally making all of my scribbling of my notes so I have it all set up. Okay. Bon. Very important, everybody. What is the why? So listen, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help we're saying, hey, Steph, help us help you, because we're really there to help you and we need to convey it. So here are a bunch of ways we can convey that to our staff members, and hopefully they'll pick up the tools and come and ask us for help, because that's really important, because that's part of our camp values. Now, first things first, why are they asking for help? So many reasons. They have a device that answers everything for them. They feel shame. They want to be, perfect. They want to impress you. Maybe they're excited about a little bit of drama. Either way, there's a million of reasons, but it's one of the number one problems that camp professionals face is getting their staff members to open up and ask for actual support. So here are some things that we can do. One, set expectations from the very beginning. That a trap that happens with first-year staff members or even returning staff members is that they don't ask for help. And our goal at our camp is to ask for help. We are a team environment. Second, role models. Do that from the very beginning. Be vulnerable, share where you're struggling, and role model what it looks like to struggle as an adult. So taking responsibility by also asking for help. Secondly, create a framework. I love Beth's camp acronym, as well as there's the World's ACT acronym. But at the end of the day, create your own framework that feels good for your team, so they have something that they can refer to, but more importantly, something that you can refer to when you're having these conversations as a teaching tool, but also reminding them of those expectations. It's also maybe part of your camp value, so you can share that with them. Like, imagine if the entire world didn't feel shame about asking for help. What kind of world would we have? That's what we're trying to practice at our camp. Once you get to camp, let's practice. You can do that by role playing. You can do that by scenario-based conversations. Either way, we need to practice, bring up that framework so they know how to do it within the framework. And then afterwards, reflect back to them what was difficult about X, Y, and Z, and do all of that before campers arrive. Once campers arrive, make sure that we're following through and giving opportunities to staff members to ask for help, give them that positive feedback and that reflection piece, just so that they can come to you a little bit earlier. And that is us on a recap.
Beautiful. Thanks, Gab. And that would be X, Y, and Z for our American neighbors.
Indeed.
I remember the first time I was running a session in the States and I said Z, and people some of them just stared at me like I'd said a new language. So we say Z north of the border.
We do.
So X, Y, Z. All right. So how can you get involved in our podcast? You can please reach out and tell us any topics you'd like us to discuss, or any brilliant guests like Kelly Schuna that you recommend we have on the show. Any great leadership training tips that you have to share, We would love to hear from you. And if you found our podcast to be useful, we would love it if you left us a rating or a review in your podcasting app. Now, this is how you can get a hold of us or find out more about what you do. So, Gab, where can they find out more about you?
You can check out where I work at waro.com, and you can get in touch with me at info@waro.com. And Waro is spelled Ouareau.
Thanks. And Kelly, is there a place that you're comfortable sharing where they can find out about your camp and all those things that you do?
Of course. My email is Kelly with a Y at hiddenpinesranch.com.
That is such a nice name for camp. And you can email me directly at beth@gocamp.pro or check us out at gocamp.pro. And for our next podcast, Gab and I will be back with Diane Slater talking about having difficult conversations with staff, part 2. And now I'm really excited to hear because there's double the information, but Kelly's going to share her best practice.
So these are 2 ideas that I have acquired from other camp pros, which is, a necessity in the camp industry. We share rising tides raises all ships. So I had 2 of them. One is I implemented office hours this past summer. So to Beth's point, if they don't know when to ask or they don't want to bother you, creating office hours. So a time when staff know they can find you. Mine at a day camp is the walk back from final circle up towards our center of camp or our garages. And I just tell staff, that's a great time to grab me, either to share something that's going well or ask questions, really any time, but that very specifically is a great time. So create some office hours or a time when staff know that you are available and are just open, ready to rock for them. The other one is from Dr. G that I tried this summer that I really liked was I created a parking lot. So I had a clipboard in our main camp hub, and it said on there, Kelly's parking lot. And then underneath were pages, and staff could write a note for me. If it wasn't like an on fire, I need help with something. If it was something on their mind, or they could write like, Gabs, Kelly, I have a question about the talent show Friday. Talk to me by today, tomorrow, whenever it is. So that was a really great tool that my staff used in communication with me to ask for my help. And it was in those little help ways so that it wasn't lingering, like you said, Gabs, and hopefully didn't get too long, but even just the small, the large. So office hours and create a little parking lot where staff can communicate with you.
Love it.
I love that. Those are so good. So good. All right. Camp Code is part of the Go Camp Pro podcast network, and you can check out all our other podcasts, including the Owners podcast that Kelly helps to co-host. Oh my goodness. The Kelly helps to co-host, and you can check them all out at gocamp.pro/podcast. So thanks for joining us today, and a very special thank you and shout out to Kelly Schuna for being here with us and sharing her advice and experience and wisdom. We are so grateful to you, and we'll have you back anytime. And thanks for the listening, friends. Bye, everybody. Camp Hacker, bringing your world into focus.